Welcome to Readings Fly Shop. We're going to cover a couple of things here I think you're going to find really handy and very useful. Tippet material. So let me define what it is. Tippet material is a refined monofilament made for putting on the end of your tapered leaders. You can use it for other things. A couple interesting points about tippet material. I know a lot of you already know this, but I'm going to give you some interesting points here you might not be aware of. Tippet material comes in basically two kinds. Standard monofilament, like this. There's other brands. And the fluorocarbon material, like stuff like this. So what is the advantage and why would you want to use a standard monofilament versus a fluorocarbon? By the way, fluorocarbons come in different dimensions of fluorocarbons. Some of them are 100% or close to 100%. Some of them are coated and some of them are half and half. I'm either going to use monofilament or I'm using fluorocarbon. Let's make it simple. So why would I want to use a standard monofilament and not fluorocarbon? Well, it's an interesting thing that happened down here years ago, and I learned a lot from it. I generally do not like using fluorocarbon when I'm dry fly fishing. Why? Because it's shiny and bright and sinks my dry fly, and it has a refractive index very, very similar to water, meaning it has a light bending quality. When the light goes through the water, it bends the light. If it goes through fluorocarbon, it bends it less than mono. So fluorocarbon has a distinct advantage in clear water in nymph fishing, underwater fishing, that it has a reduced visibility. I said reduced, not invisible, to the trout. It's also denser and harder. It doesn't hold split shot very well. So it has some intrinsic values that are really advantageous for fishing clear water with the nymph underneath the water, because it's denser, it sinks faster, it's got more abrasion resistance, and it basically less visibility to the trout. So where do I use monofilament then? Well, I can use it no matter what, on top, underneath. I like to use it for dry fly fishing because it's not shiny and bright and it doesn't sink my dry flies. So, and monofilament comes in soft or limp or stiff. Fluorocarbon is typically, but not always, more on the stiffer side. So that runs into something very interesting, and that is what is meant by the X number on tippet material. Now, a lot of people know this, but they might not put it all together. If a tippet material says it is 5X, it has to be 0.006, period. It can't be anything else. So what's the point? If it's 5X, what's the strength of it? That's the $64 question. Depends on who made it and what it's made out of. You've heard the old adage, you get what you pay for. I don't think that's necessarily true. Sometimes you get what you pay for. Sometimes you don't get what you paid for. And sometimes if you're really smart and savvy, you get more than what you paid for. But I will say this. Most tippet material made in fly fishing, so refined monofilament, most tippet material is you kind of get what you pay for. If you pay a little more money for fluorocarbon, you generally get a more consistent diameter, and more than likely that diameter is going to have a higher strength in it. So the bottom line is, if you get a high quality tippet material, it's probably going to have a higher strength to it, it's going to be a truer diameter. So what's the difference? If you're using 5X and it's not 5X, it's 0.007 or 0.008, then you're not fishing with 5X. It has to be 0.006 to be 5X. 7X has to be 0.004. If it is not, then you are basically being misled because it isn't truly 7X. Some 7X can be as high as 2.75 pounds, and some 7X is as low as under 2 pounds, maybe 1.75 pounds, 1.5 pounds. So if you get a refined tippet material, depending on what it's made out of, fluorocarbon or monofilament, you're going to increase the strength and decrease the diameter. And the smaller diameter lets your fly drift more naturally. So one other feature I want to point out is if you're dry fly fishing, whipping your fly back and forth the air, 80, 90, 120 miles an hour, your leader is potentially going to twist up if your fly is too big and your tippet's too small. It's not that your tippet's not good, you're not matching your dry fly with your tippet diameter. So in other words, if I'm fishing a size 14 dry fly and using 7X leader, I don't care what it's made out of, it's going to twist up on me. So you need to think of things called the rule of threes. You multiply your X number times 3, the product you get, one bigger and one lower, is the sizes you use on a standard tied dry fly. Example, 3 times 6 is 18. I could fish a size 18 dry fly, one bigger is a 16, one smaller is a 20. Or I can divide the fly size by 3 and I'll come up with 6X, 3 into 18 is 6. It's called the rule of threes. It will keep you out of trouble when it comes to dry fly fishing. It'll give you a point of reference on what size tippet you should use in dry fly fishing for what size fly you're fishing with. If the fly is bigger than normal, 1.5 times the gap of the hook and the hackle, what's going to happen is you might have to use a heavier tippet. If you forget all of this stuff and you're out dry fly fishing and your tippet gets all twisted up, don't blame the tippet. You probably don't have the right size tippet matched to the size dry fly. Something else you might consider very important is when you're dry fly fishing, cut down the number of false casts you make and change the speed and false cast fewer with a tighter loop. You're riding the edge here, but if you can have a really nice narrow loop, knock the moisture off and lay the fly on the water, you won't continue to keep false casting and twisting up your leader. So these features, if you come by the shop, I will demonstrate to them. I don't expect you to remember all this stuff, but this is of paramount importance in your fishing success, is the size of the tippet, what it's made out of, and what leader you fish with. You're going to notice when you dry fly fish, you've got 7.5, 9, and 12-foot tapered leaders. So how long should your tapered leader be? It's really directly proportional to the type of water you're fishing, the complexity of the currents, and the size of the stream. 7.5, 9, and 12 have nothing to do with the length of your rod. I can train over a 14-foot leader on a 6-foot rod. So the length of your rod has nothing to do with the length of your taper. It's an old axiom that died many years ago. You come by, I'll give you the trivial reason of why they used to do that years ago. But as it is right now, if I'm fishing a typical dry fly stream of size of Bennett, I'm going to use probably a 9 to 10 or 12-foot leader if I want a good dead drift on complicated converging and diverging currents. If I'm fishing on a really small stream, I might use a shorter tapered leader because I'm getting fly line out tip of my rod. If I'm using a really short rod, the tape of the leader doesn't make any difference except if I'm in really close and I want to pull the leader knot up through my guides. So there are lots of variations in here, and if you drop by the shop, I will pick up where I'm at. Just a brief outline of some of the things you're going to get at Readings Fly Shop. You're probably not going to get this information just anywhere, but I've been at this for 40 years now, and I've given this away on a daily basis. So drop by the shop. I will discuss and reintroduce you to tippets, leaders, and the combination of fly leaders in relation to fly tippet diameters. You'll find this to be very, very useful, and it more than likely will solve a lot of problems for you. And a lot of times you will get what you pay for when you buy a premium tippet material. Have a great day.